Hey, I'm back. This is Chandler from Melda Production, and today I thought I would show you MDrumEnhancer. So this has been out a while, but somebody recently asked me to do a video about it. And to be honest, I actually like this plugin a lot, but I don't use it a lot just because I don't often record live drums. But I actually did a few years ago, and I decided I would show it to you, and then I'll show you basically how MDrumEnhancer works and some things we can do with it. So let's get started. What I have here is just 4 tracks. I have a kick drum, a snare drum, and then these are 2 overheads. So it really isn't that useful with overheads or rooms, I've found, but for kicks and snares and even toms, it works really well. And there's even some experimental uses you can do with it too, but let's get to the main uses first. And let's listen to these. So this is what it sounds like raw. You get the idea. Now let's use MDrumEnhancer. Let me explain briefly why you might want to use MDrumEnhancer and why it's useful. The reason I like MDrumEnhancer is because it's not actually a drum replacer. It's not replacing your sound. It's just kind of enhancing it. So it's changing the tone, but unlike a drum enhancer, it doesn't require any triggering. So you don't have to worry like, oh, what's happening? It's, like out of sync, or it didn't catch this little move. So especially with snare drums where they might be playing some ghost notes or, other things like flams where a normal drum replacer might not catch these, MDrumEnhancer can. But let me show you what it might sound like on a bass drum track. So here it is with it off, and I'll go through some of the presets. On. Way too loud. It's amazing. That actually does sound like a, like a electronic kick, even though this is completely acoustic. I actually recorded this myself, so I know it's an acoustic. So these are just a quick example of what you can do with this, but you might be wondering like, okay, what if I do it from scratch? So I should put it on the default here. If you put it on here, what you're going to hear is a bunch of white noise when it plays like this. Like, what is that? And the reason is because you haven't chosen a sample. So the first thing I want to do is go in here in bass drum and choose one of these here. So let's say acoustic 1. If I think, okay, that one sounds close to what I want, you can use that. From there, there's other things we can do. So sometimes just so I can hear it better, sometimes I turn the wet all the way up, although it doesn't sound good, in an actual mix. Just to hear it and adjust it, it's good. So that's what MDrumEnhancer is actually adding, but I don't want all that. So let's move it down to around like 50% or so, and I might need to turn the output down a little bit. And let's hear it, and let's mess with something like the character. So moving it down here is going to make it bassier. Moving it up here is going to add some treble. Okay, and I can reduce the compression also here. That seems good. The sustain will make it shorter. If I want it tighter, I move it to the left. If I want it to sound more like a reverb almost on there, like a bigger room, turn it to the right. So I'll try to demonstrate that. For this, it's more of like an acoustic thing, so I want to turn the sustain up for this sound, but of course you can, do whatever you want with that. And then I try to adjust the output, and here It has some widening here, so you can look and see if it's actually in stereo. I'm not sure. Does this have a stereo meter? I'm not sure. But you can see here with the output if it's actually stereo. So you can see, since they're not moving exactly in sync, it means there's some stereo information. If you like that, just leave it how it is, or you can even enhance it by moving it like that. But if I think I want this mono, just move it down here like this. And now let's try bypassing it so we can hear the before. So that's sounding at least better to me. It's not sounding quite as boxy. It's not quite as in my face. And from there, if I want to do more, of course, I can go in here and use some of the EQs like this. So as you saw, I can use it as a normal EQ here, or if I pull on these little nodes here, I can change it into a dynamic EQ, which is great. If you want more options for that, you're like, hey, I want to adjust, the attack and release of this, just right click it, and then you have all this. You can adjust the dynamics, the attack, release, a bunch of other stuff if you want to do that. So there you go. I'll leave the bass drum like this for now. I think that's good. And now let's move over to the snare, and we'll do the same thing. Turn this on. Actually, for the default settings, sometimes for the snare it sounds okay. All that white noise, that's kind of a mixing trick, but we're not here to talk about white noise. So let's get into here. I'll show some presets. There's a lot for this, but let's just hear a few. So there's lots of different sounds in here. If you're looking for like a bottom hi-hat where you really emphasize the snares, I think these snares sound really good for that, to emphasize that more. But there's lots of things we can do with this. But let's just put it back on default, and we can do the same thing here. Choose snare. We can go through these. There's quite a few here. Like, let's try maybe 2. Now let's stick with that just because I like that body on there. One of the great things about MDrumEnhancer is, unlike like a normal EQ, this can really bring out the different sounds and almost completely change it. So I'll do a bypass really fast. So I have it up really high, but let's leave it there and let's do some other things like turn down the compression, sustain, etc. So there you saw that, and one more thing is the pitch. By doing this, it's not going to actually change the pitch of your snare drum, but it will kind of change some of the resonances, so I'll let you hear that. If you get really wacky with it, it won't really work so well, but little subtle changes, you see it made it quite a bit darker. So this is before. And you can do whatever you want with this and, manipulate that in any way you like. But let's see if I can do a quick before and after. So this is before. So you can hear quite a difference. The snare sounds much fuller, much meatier, and the kick doesn't sound like I'm hitting a piece of cardboard anymore. So of course you can do this with toms, and if you're wondering like, I wish there was more snares in here I could mess with, you can actually use this custom path and do it yourself. Let me see if I actually have any samples of snares. I'm not sure if I have any good ones. I'm not sure if I have any. Let me look in here if I can. I'm trying to help you out, but snare. Actually, you don't actually even need to use snares. You can try it with something else. So let's hear what this sounds like. I don't know if this will sound good, but let's give it a try. So I wouldn't normally use that, but you can, and you can try it with other things too. Let's try it with a tom drum. So you can do it with anything. You can even do it with some weird things. Let me see. Here's another snare in here. Does this sound better? So you can mix these and match these if you want to use these for more of a creative effect too. So if you have a large snare library, you can do that if you want. And like I said, the great thing is if you have a natural drum kit where somebody's playing, it doesn't mess with the dynamics. It will pick up those little subtleties in the drumming. It just makes it sound a little bit better, which for me, I think is better when you're doing acoustic drums. If I was doing like a rock track or especially like jazz or something like that. So this can be really helpful. I hope that gave you an idea of what MDrumEnhancer can do. If it did, give me a thumbs up. If you have a question, leave that down below. Check out all the other plugins at meldaproduction.com. And until next time, see you.